Take a look at this map. This is the United States, the largest country in the world. Now, what if I told you that half of this entire nation was bought overnight with a single signature and for the price of a handful of dirt? But that's not the craziest part. The man who made this colossal purchase, President Thomas Jefferson, was not constitutionally authorized to do it. He threw all authority out the window and took the biggest gamble in history. But here's the kicker. This massive tract of land, just 2 years before it was sold to the US, was traded not for cash, but for an Italian duchy. And we will reveal at the end of this video that the famous $15 million price tag was a lie, and how ironic the source of the money truly was. So, don't blink, because this act of madness is the madness that made America. Let's start from scratch. The story begins in 1802 with a trade crisis. President Thomas Jefferson had one single worry: the port of New Orleans. It was the economic jugular vein for all of Western U.S. trade. If the port closed, Western America would suffocate. Jefferson sent envoys to Paris with a mandate to spend a maximum of $10 million to secure just the port. It was meant to be a simple port operation. However, the port and the land surrounding it had secretly changed hands just before the U.S. envoys departed. And that's where the insane chain of ownership begins. This is the critical part. This land initially belonged to France since the 1600s, but following the 7 Years' War, France ceded the territory to Spain. Under Spanish rule, the U.S. felt relatively comfortable using the port. That is, until the 1800 Treaty of San Ildefonso came to light. Napoleon Bonaparte convinced the King of Spain to secretly return the massive territory to him. And what did Napoleon give Spain in return? Not cash. France arranged for a duchy in the Italian region of Tuscany for the Spanish king's family. Yes, you heard that right. Half a continent was swapped for a small European territory. When Jefferson learned that the land now belonged to Napoleon, Europe's most powerful and dangerous military genius, he panicked. The port operation instantly turned into a risk of a continental war. When the U.S. envoys arrived in Paris, Napoleon was in a desperate situation. He had lost over 60,000 soldiers in the Haitian rebellion in the Caribbean. His dream of a new world empire was dead. Simultaneously, he was about to engage in a major war with Great Britain and desperately needed immediate cash. His coffers were empty. And this is where the madness erupts. Napoleon chose to sell this massive, indefensible territory to the U.S. rather than lose it to the British. To the U.S. envoys, who were only there for the port, Napoleon's staff offered the entire Louisiana territory for $15 million. The envoys exceeded their $10 million authority, bargained furiously, and signed the agreement within 4 days. This was a strategic retreat by Napoleon, securing the funds he needed for his European war. But how exactly was that money paid? That leads us to the financial irony. The U.S. had won an incredible victory, but for President Jefferson, the nightmare was just beginning. Jefferson was a strict constitutionalist. Nowhere in the Constitution was the president authorized to purchase foreign land. Signing this deal meant risking impeachment and violating the very principles he stood for. But if he waited for a constitutional amendment, Napoleon might change his mind. So Jefferson made the radical choice. He set aside his conscience, bypassed the Constitution, and approved the deal. This was the biggest constitutional gamble in American history. And that $15 million, the majority of this payment was actually provided to the U.S. through loans secured from British and Dutch banks. Napoleon, caring little about the source, used this money to finance the war he was about to launch against Great Britain. So the madness that doubled the size of the US was ironically financed by British bank money. An epic story written by one emperor's panic, one president's constitutional gamble, and the trade of an Italian duchy. This land, purchased for less than 3 cents per acre, is worth trillions of dollars today. This act of madness changed the geography, economy, and destiny of the United States forever. Do you think this was the greatest bargain in history or the greatest constitutional risk? Let me know in the comments. And remember, in the next episode, we're covering America's other famously ridiculous deal, the Alaska Purchase. Another massive territory bought cheaply, which the US Senate mocked as Seward's Folly, a worthless chunk of ice. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss that madness.